marry someone, you promise to love them forever.
Baby.
No matter how much they might change.
Right? Baby, what happened to your face?
It's just a bee sting.
From Universal Pictures
Are you sick or something?
comes a film so shocking,
We got a real problem here.
so disgusting,
Don't let him in your mouth!
it will change the face of horror.
Marriage is a sacred bond, for better or worse.
Much worse. Chick is hardcore.
Something's wrong with me.
Slither.
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls. Prepare for Prattle.
It was a defensive exercise.
Yeah, best defense is a good offense. Or is it the other way around?
Welcome to Prattle World. I am your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan. And in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. Can't get my words out tonight. And welcome to Secret Defenders, where I task my guests to defend their favorite movies that are underrated, infamous, or obscure. And have we got a disgustingly heartfelt kind of film? It's beyond description. It is so unique, even though influenced by many, many films. It is something truly, truly unique. And I have a truly unique guest here today to defend this underrated horror, body horror classic from the mid-noughties, the darkest period of horror movies there was. It was super serious back then, and there wasn't much like this out there. And maybe that is perhaps why it didn't do so well. But we have Femme on Films, Ria Carrogan, here to defend James Gunn's directorial debut, Slither.
Woo! Yeah!
Wow. Yes. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I've been enjoying all your stuff.
Thank you. I'm everywhere.
You and Jack now are busier than me, and I thought I was pretty busy. I thought I was pretty like hardcore on all this, but you guys are all over Comics in Motion, and you've all got your own shows now. It's amazing. I'm absolutely loving it. And I just listened to your first episode of Femme on Film, and it was just what I wanted. You and Tony,
thank you,
absolutely smashed. Again, still haven't seen Josie and the Pussycats, but I'm going to watch it this weekend. I think I'm going to treat myself.
I think you need to, this isn't about Josie and Pussycats, but I think after listening to Femme on Film, Josie and the Pussycats, you know what you're going into when you watch it now. Because I think that's what took many people by surprise when it first came out. People did not know what to expect, and they didn't expect a satire or, to be a feminist satire. But I think, if you've listened, it helps you when you go and watch it now. I'm not saying you're going to love it. It's not the best film that's ever made, but I think it helps set the tone a bit more for what you're about to view. Yeah, just bigging up my own podcast.
And so you should. I think it's really, really good. And I can't wait to hear from more guests, whoever that may be and whatever films you tackle. I'm loving it so far. So I really hope you keep going for a very, very long time, because I think...
Thank you. It's so weird. It's so weird. And I said to you as well, we were having a chat, and I was like, so much harder hosting than just popping up like I am today and just sort of like getting to talk passionately about something and getting to say everything that's in my head. When you're hosting, it's like a real effort. It's like a job. It's really,
It is. It really is. Yes, and I'm feeling it now. I'm feeling the stress, the tension. No, this is chill. This is my favorite part of the podcast, is actually just sitting down and talking stuff. I think it's all the editing and the social media and all that. That's the stuff I can't stand. All the kind of the admin stuff. This is what I like, being here in the moment and talking underrated, obscure, or maligned movies, much like on Femme on Film. So tell us a little bit about James. Well, there's not much of a plot, but I would like you to explain the plot to 2006's Slither.
Right, yes. So, okay, let's set the scene. We are in the small town of Wheelsey, which is somewhere in middle America. It is the start of deer hunting season. We've got Elizabeth Banks as Starla. We've got Nathan Fillion as Bill. We've got Michael Rooker as Grant, which is one of my favourite things. Tanya Saulnier as Kylie, and Greg Henry as the mayor, Jack McCready, which is a lovely shout out to The Thing, which I enjoy every single time. And basically, it happens over, I think it's like maybe 5 days. A meteor from outer space, or something from outer space, lands in Wheelsey, and it releases some worms, slugs that want to take over the planet. And it's how our protagonists win and defeat the alien beings whilst being funny.
It is funny. I will give you that. It is funny. It's
the description really got away from me then.
It is funny. No, it is really good. And like I was saying earlier, like the mid 2000s, it was like arguably kind of, like I said, the worst time for the horror genre. There was a lot of kind of super serious blue filters on everything. There's light blue filters on everything. And it was just a bit dour, a bit down. I think The Ring was successful, so everything kind of like imitated that. This is like absolutely like a love letter, like you were saying, to those kind of 80s horror films. I can list, there's a good like 20, 30 films he's either inspired by or directly references. I actually thought this was, when I first saw the poster back in the day, I thought this was an actual remake of Shivers by David Cronenberg, because the slugs going into the bath, I was like, oh, that's Shivers. But then I realized Slither is not Shivers, but it is inspired by it.
And that's what I really like about this film. So one of the things that really went against it is, one, you're completely right. When it was released, it was not the right place for this sort of horror, gore, comedy film. It hadn't really happened. We'd had Shaun of the Dead 2 years before, and people just went crazy for that. But for some reason, Slither slipped through the net. And I think that is because it lent more into the horror, it lent more into the gore and the body horror type of thing. And I think that one of the things that really worked against it is so many people immediately jumped on it and said, oh, well, it's just copying all of these things, it's not original. And for me, it is actually completely original, because what I love about horror is that we tend to get the same stories and the same tropes over and over and over again. And it's when somebody does something different to that I find it quite exciting. Or it's when they do the tropes really well that I really enjoy. Because I think horror works best when it knows it's a horror. And I think this film absolutely knows it's both a horror and both a comedy. And it's not afraid to reference those things. It's not afraid to reference horror films that have had a huge impact that are similar. Like you said, you've talked about Shivers, but there's so many other influences. For me, the first time I watched it, I probably didn't notice them all, but I love all the Invasion of the Body Snatchers films. I've seen every iteration. I think they're all fantastic, even though some of them are shit. So we've got Invasion of Body Snatchers, we've got The Fly, we've got Return of the Living Dead. I love zombie films. We've got Society, which is a film I watched way too young and did not understand, and then watched when I was a bit older. I was like, okay, it's not just like some weird sex people going into a big blob thing. That was another Secret Defenders on this podcast. In fact, especially the ending, but we won't go into that just yet. It's very much like, I was like, very much so. That's some fucked up shit. Exactly, right? And that's the thing, like, the script is so good that it's not self-referential in a way that makes you want to punch yourself in the face. It's self-referential in a way that it understands horror and it understands comedy. And that's for me, that's just why it works. It obviously loves these films and that genre, and it doesn't hide from that, but it also does something that's completely its own.
I think if it wasn't so knowingly referring back to all this 80s horror, like I got have you seen Night of the Creeps?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a big thing with the slugs going in the mouth and reanimating the dead type thing. I love that as well. And this Frank Henenlotter stuff. So things like Basket Cases, referenced and things like that. So really like deep cuts. So it's not just like, oh, Halloween or, The Exorcist. It's like really digging deep into those horror love roots. And I think because it explicitly references them, it doesn't feel like a rip-off because it's going, this is actually very obviously a reference to this, but it's because I love it. That's why I'm referring to it. I'm not making out like this is the most original thing ever, because it isn't. And I think as well, when you were talking about the comedy, I think with Shaun of the Dead, they lean into comedy a bit more. It's a bit more like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. This is a comedy. With this, I think it gets the balance. The horror comedies for me are my favorites. And I think when you get the balance absolutely right, it works. And I think this one really hits home with a horror as well.
Yeah, it's genuinely disturbing and terrifying at times.
Yeah, the two sex scenes for me are the most disturbing parts, I think, of the entire film. Don't worry about the whole, homogenous mass at the end, but just before all that happens, that's the bit where I'm like, oh, this is all a bit.
Yeah, for me, it's the scene with, so basically Michael Rooker, who's Grant, who's married to Starla, he's the first person to get infected. And I love, so we'll get onto that. So we love how that sort of starts manifesting, both in his performance and in the practical effects, and then how the character changes. But there's a scene where he basically needs to impregnate somebody. So there's a young lady who he fancies, even though he's married to somebody else, and he's possessed. So he goes in, and the whole scene is so unsettling. So he knocks on her door, opens the door, and she's there with her young child. So you immediately get a sense of her as a person. She's obviously quite lonely. She's like the day before approached him in a bar. And, it's very open that she wants to have sex with him. Fantastic. She should be. It's not her responsibility that he's married, although, I have some moral issues with that in general. But you understand her as a character. You understand why, and she's barely on the screen. You understand why she's doing that. And
later, she's
very much on the screen.
Very much on the screen.
Takes up the whole screen. And when he goes, and she's, you understand, like, she brings out the cheese and crackers, and she's trying to be sophisticated. Yeah. And that's heart-wrenching in itself. Like, that just makes my heart just drop, because you completely understand how much she just wants to be loved and wants to be with somebody. And then he doesn't rape her as such in what we would consider as a human-to-human rape, but he does rape her. And the way it's filmed is, it's not exploitative at all. No. It's incredibly disturbing. And it's so shocking to just sit there and see that. And we've had before then, we've had sort of some jokes and some lead up to it. And it's done so well, and it's handled incredibly well. There's been dramas and thrillers that have what are rapes in them that are not handled as well as this film.
Yeah.
It seems so mad to say.
Yeah, but you're right. You're absolutely right. And I think it's a very fine line to get that either very right or very wrong. I think it's a very delicate thing to address in the way you film it and the way you with horror films, there is this kind of, this thing about that. We spoke about it last week with Jack in our Hitchcockian Clone Wars. We talk about the male gaze, and we talk about the misogyny that comes in, like, a slasher film specifically, and things. And, and that argument is very valid, and, all arguments are. And then there's, scenes like this where it's just, I know for a fact that the two kind of, tentacles or whatever they're called, that come out initially, it was only going to be a single one.
Really?
But they felt that it was a little too phallic. So that's why they introduced the second one to kind of make it a bit more kind of alien, to say the least. But yeah, for me, that was just, she's convulsing, her eyes are rolling into the back of her head, and he's just smiling and grinning, and he sits back and he relaxes and he enjoys this, even though it's like, it's basically his part of his like breeding thing. He takes pleasure in her being affected by it and destroyed by it, in the long term. Spoilers, but that's just a horrifying, the callousness of it, I think, and is the most disturbing part of it. Yeah, we get all these kind of weird and wacky creatures and humor later on, but and then you've got this song playing at the bar, this kind of like sweet love song playing all the way over the top of it, which just is just juxtaposed to that horrific, horrible situation, which just makes it even that more disturbing than what it already is, basically. Yeah, really disturbing. But even him, just before he even transforms, before he gets infected or anything, him just pressuring his wife into sex is very uncomfortable.
Yeah, and that's such an interesting scene. So I've watched the film quite a lot, and when I first watched it, I wasn't as old or as sort of experienced or as opinionated, well, I've always been opinionated about the world as I am now. So sort of just enjoyed the film for what it is. But the older I've gotten, the more I've watched it, which hasn't been much recently because you can't really get it anywhere. We had to buy it on a German DVD. The last 2 times I watched it for this, there's such a great thread, and I don't say great as in he's a good person, in that character development. That's one of the things I really, really enjoy about this film, that I think all of the characters are incredibly well thought out. The writing of them is really good. But specifically with Grant, we see him at the beginning, we learn a little backstory about why he's got a young, beautiful wife. And basically, she didn't have a great upbringing, she needed an out, and he had lots of money, and that's why she married him. And you see them together, and you can see that he's possessive, and you can see that he's sort of like pressuring her into sex. When he doesn't get it, he gets up and leaves, and that's when he first meets Brenda at the bar. And then you get the next day when she's feeling guilty for not giving him sex. As the film progresses, it's so like he gets possessed, and the being that possesses him basically falls in love with Starla, and they have sex, and they have like a wonderful night of sex. And then you see her the next day, and she's flushed, and she's telling her co-workers what an amazing night, and it's been so long since they've had sex. And it rings so true in abusive relationships, because he's not outwardly abusive to her. He doesn't force himself on her. He clearly doesn't hit her or anything like that, but he's clearly emotionally manipulative, if not abusive. And it's such a wonderful, you can't see my hands, but I'm sort of I'm doing like a curve, it's such a lovely flow or arc of that relationship. And it gets to, they realize he's possessed by this thing, and she's trying to talk him back, and you get this thread of love from her, which he does not deserve, but it works because, so many people are in those sorts of relationships, but you understand why she's motivated to try and solve it all, because he was her savior. He's provided her with a safe life, and it may not be fulfilling, but she's as happy as she can be. And I think that works really well, because if you didn't have that, then the rest of the story, where she's saying, well, I want to come along to try and capture him, it wouldn't work. You'd be like, why is she there? Why does she then team up with Nathan Fillion? I should use their characters' names, with Bill Pardy why is she there for the rest of the film? She just wouldn't be. She'd just be fridged, right? That's what we'd get from her.
Yeah, and I think you think that, especially when it's the kind of the big reveal with the stretchy arm and the police come in, you think, okay, she's probably, it looks like she's just, because the cops have no reason to be there, really.
Yeah.
They kind of just rock up because the plot needs it to happen, kind of thing, which is, I think that's probably the weakness of the film, is that the plot is very kind of loose and kind of flimsy, but I find that with a lot of James Gunn films. I think what carries me through a James Gunn film, and I love my James Gunn films. I've loved Guardians. The Suicide Squad I thought was fantastic. What carries me through is the characters,
Yeah.
the way he writes, and he used to do some acting during his Troma days, the Troma Entertainment days. He wrote Tromeo and Juliet, so he's coming from that kind of offensive background, because that's what Troma were all about, like massively trying to offend people every 5 minutes. If there wasn't a controversy, they were like, we're not going to sell a film.
We have not done our job properly.
Speaking of Troma, Lloyd Kaufman, who was the director basically of Troma, he makes a cameo in this as the sad drunk in the police station. He also has a cameo in the bar in the Suicide Squad, and Brenda is even watching The Toxic Avenger on the television.
Yes, yeah. I only found that today when I was doing some Googling to make sure I had some of my facts right.
Got to double check those facts.
Yeah, I was going to come on and just be spatting all this random stuff, and everybody would be like, "What are you talking about?"
You better know your stuff.
Yeah.
But like for a directorial debut, this is really good. I think it's really strong. It's fun. It has that balance right with the humor and the horror, which is again a very difficult balance. It's just that tightrope to walk. It's very, very difficult, and I think he nails it. He casts really good actors, really strong actors.
The cast is so good.
Just they all bring their A game, and they all know how to handle the content of the film and what it is about, what it's all about. And I think he said to Nathan Fillion, he went, "It's not a horror comedy. It's a horror that's also funny." I think is what he described it as. So it's still a horror film, but. And what I love about the characters, they're all a little bit broken. There's all a piece. There's always a piece missing. Guardians is a good example of that. They've all got some horrible backstory. Thanos is your dad. I was a raccoon once. All this sort of stuff. And he finds that kind of core of a character really well. And I think I watched a video on YouTube, and someone says it comes from a place of insecurity, and that's where he finds these characters. He goes, what's their kind of major malfunction, and goes, right, let's build from that outwards, and finds a way for them to relate, to be charming, to be funny, to be terrified, and they play them all seriously, and I love that the characters are not like this, the archetype. So the hero Nathan Fillion, his reaction is like a regular person's reaction.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is this? I'm terrified. It's not like, well, I've got to do what a man's got to do sort of thing. It's like I'm gonna confront this in any way I can, but I'm still I've wet myself, but I'm going to carry on anyway. And I love those kind of realistic moments. Or the mayor is great in this as well.
Yes,
I love
good.
I love a dodgy politician in a horror film. It goes back. We even did a podcast actually, top 5 worst politicians a while back, me and Andy, which was a fun podcast. And this guy would be in it. I think this guy would. He's not. And doesn't he get called like a Republican or a liberal or something?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, we hate you. But yeah, it's just such a great cast, and they all have such a great grasp of the script, and they know exactly what they're here for. They know exactly how to deliver it. That in a horror film is kind of key, I think.
It's half the work done, isn't it?
Yeah. I think either you have to hate them or you have to love them in a horror film, the characters. If you're somewhere in the middle, don't.
That's what works so well. So like Nathan Fillion, so before this, most people knew him from Firefly, Serenity, his short stint on the last season of Buffy. But he comes into this and you do not think he's Malcolm Reynolds from Firefly. I mean, other people might, but I don't. And, he still brings his certain Nathan Fillion-esque stuff to it because he is who he is. And he's just got that little charm that he has. But you just completely forget he's Malcolm Reynolds. You truly believe he's Bill Pardy. You truly believe he's been in love with Starla. He's now the sheriff of this little town where nothing really much happens. And when everything's a bit slow at the beginning, everything he does, all of his reactions are real. He acts what I imagine like a real sheriff or police officer would be. He's just kind of like, okay, we've just got to figure out this and we'll do that. I think it's like this 3 days later, isn't it, after Grant goes running off into the forest, and you see them trying to piece things together. And I think that slowness as well is unusual in a good horror film. I think you'd normally see that in a bad horror film. He just absolutely got the memo and was like, yep, I'm doing it. I'm going to be funny, cute, brave, stupid, smart. I'm going to do all of this. I'm going to wrap it all up in my performance. put my little twinkle on it. There's so many line deliveries that he does that, like you said, that are like a real person, and that's got to be so hard to as an actor. You'll know that. It's surely it's much easier to act than actually act like a real person. And so he's just fantastic. I think for me, Elizabeth Banks is just the absolute standout in this. She's so good. And her character, I don't even think that she has character progression, and not in a bad way. I think from the moment that we see her character, we completely understand that she's somebody who's determined, who's brave, who knows what she wants, who will stand up for herself, but yet she has all these vulnerabilities of a normal person. She's not the horror trope of being a badass, muscled up lady. And she's not the horror trope of being a damsel in distress. She demonstrates her strength of character throughout, and as like strength of character, not muscles, throughout the whole thing. And that's why it works, because she doesn't even necessarily have to step up when shit goes down. She's just who she is. She's had to put herself in a position so Grant will marry her so she can have this life that we want. We know from the conversations she has with Bill that she wanted to run off to Hollywood, and he's the one who stopped her. There's always been this drive in her. And so when the shit goes down, she's like, well, I'm just going to be carrying on doing this. I'm not going to get killed by these weird slug things, and it's the little things when she's putting the water into people's mouths from like the rag and stuff like that. It's those little things of the character that make her so believable and make her absolutely the star of the show.
I agree. I think she's all the characters are very grounded, and I think that's important in having, you've got weird alien slugs jumping into people's mouths and turning them into zombies. I think maybe you need to ground something or somebody in this, and I think that's what it does really well, and and I think everyone is likable to a degree,
yeah. Apart from the mayor.
Yeah, even the mayor, I kind of like. I'm like, he's a complete arsehole, but I love his I love when they don't have his favorite. Was it Mr. Pibb?
Yeah,
and he's like, oh, this shit's going, and this is like the straw that broke the camel's back. He's like, people spitting acid at me and trying to eat me and trying to kill me, and squids going up people's mouths, and now we've run out of Mr. Pibb. That's his big thing. He was actually in one of the films that me and Jack discussed the other week in our Hitchcock Clone Wars. In Body Double, yes. So yeah, he's in Body Double. So you should give that a watch if you like him. He's very good in that. I think everyone, like even Grant or the Grant monster, because James Gunn considers Grant dead as soon as he gets infected. We get this lovely little X-ray, so we get this little barb that fires into his chest, and then it kind of wheedles its way up into his brain, and then we get this X-ray shot of it like going up there, and at that point he says he's dead. And then the monster takes over, this kind of hive mind from 1,000 different planets that has experienced and ate, kind of like The Thing from John Carpenter, or like a symbiote from Spider-Man type thing. There's this hive mind, and I love that. Even though Grant can no longer really talk with all the kind of makeup and everything, can't effectively talk, he's talking through all the other people, and he could organize like traps and things like that. I love that idea that you could coordinate something while having this hive mind, and then scream some obscenities and some awful stuff at these people as well, which is kind of hilarious as well. Like, you're gonna get it, you whore, stuff like that, and when the family attacks the young girl who was in the bath, all the sort of things they're shouting at her.
I want to talk about that whole scene. So from that whole moment with Kylie being attacked from the bath is the perfect short horror film within a longer form horror film. And it's so good. So we see her, she's having dinner with her parents. Her dad's being racist about her nails because somebody from Japan did it. So we're already a bit like, we know what's going to happen here. She's going to be the one who survives, and they're all going to get, not killed, is it? But they're going to get, I guess, taken over by the slug worms.
They do die. Like
they do, yeah.
Yeah, at the end they do. But when it goes into your brain, you're dead anyway.
Yeah, you're pretty much done for. And so it's her mum and dad, and her twin sisters. And so the slugs come out there. It's near their house. She's having a bath, classic horror sort of setup. We get the slugs come into the bath, swim through the bath, which is, a lovely sort of
homage.
Thank you. I couldn't think of the word to so many other things, and obviously like Nightmare on Elm Street and things like that. And then she comes out and she's immediately into survival mode, which we see in sort of a normal sort of final girl. She's the final girl trope, whereas Starla is not. And then when she finally gets out of the house and she's in the car, so everybody in her family's got the slugs in them, and she's in the car, the performance of the two girls playing her sisters is absolutely fucking terrifying. Those girls, how they are not hugely famous now is absolutely beyond me, because like it's genuinely terrifying when she's in that car. And the way those girls are delivering the lines and looking, they are animated zombies who can talk. It's just like it's absolutely genius. And we would see that in a short horror film. And even the way, obviously it has to progress. So she escapes the car and everything. But for me, a short horror film would just end with her like fading to black, maybe a camera pulling out with her in the car, not knowing what's going to happen to her. Exactly. Yeah, with all the slugs going over. So good. Yeah,
it really, really is. And the scariest thing about the zombies as well is that they can mess with you psychologically. Like they can undermine you, they can make you afraid, they can say personal stuff to you. That's, a zombie is terrifying enough. Not only does it have an alien slug in it, but it also can talk to you and knows things about you, knows personal stuff about you. Like that's more real horror to me when someone says things like that to me, and I'm like, oh my god, that's really upsetting. That's scary stuff. I was reading up on it and doing a bit of research, and I found out that this was a fairly personal film for James Gunn. Like, not only is it his directorial debut, so it was a big deal, it was a big thing, there was a lot of pressure. But Jenna Fisher, who has a role in the film and who was married to James Gunn at the time, her part, she wasn't even originally supposed to be in it. Somebody kind of begged out of their contract or something, and James Gunn gave her part as a birthday present, and she kind of screamed with joy because she said she's like, I've always wanted to play a zombie. Which I love. It's like a really sweet story. But however, their marriage, they broke up, I think, a couple of years later. And the way he talks about the film, that it's actually all about marriage and the pressures of marriage, and how people seem to get other people from outside seem to become part of the marriage, and that they start to, and it just becomes kind of chaos, and it becomes more difficult to maintain the marriage and maintain this loving relationship, which is kind of not unlike the homogenous mass at the end, the society element. And I'm not sure if maybe that, this was something that was plaguing him and his marriage at the time. I don't think he was married before. So maybe that kind of fed in. And he does say he relates to the Grant character a lot. I don't think in an abusive way, from what I gather, but I think it's that he's kind of trying his best, and even though he's trying his best and he loves this person, it's the marriage kind of falling apart at the seams, and that he's trying to hold this together, and the monster is trying to hold itself together as well. So I think it kind of feeds into that a little bit. I mean, it's a little sad, but obviously some of the best art we get is from very sad people, or troubled people, troubled artists. So he seems very happy at the moment. So that,
he's doing all right.
He's doing all right. Yeah, so he's got a beautiful new girlfriend, and she was in the Suicide Squad. He's happy. Don't worry about it. But I'm kind of, in some ways, I'm kind of glad that happened, if that fed into this and gave us such an excellent film. And obviously Jenna Fisher's done all right in The Office, the American Office. She's very popular. She has her own popular podcast about The Office as well.
Yeah.
So there you go. So it all worked out in the end. But yeah, it's an interesting, again, it's you look at it and you go, oh, it's just a monster movie. It's a bit of body horror, and it's a bit of kind of tongue-in-cheek humor and stuff. But actually, it's there's some deeper stuff going on, especially with all the characters. Grant, like you said, Starla, who's this kind of apparently James Gunn was looking for a Hitchcockian blonde.
Yeah, you should totally see, especially at the end when she's in the white night dress, and the way Elizabeth Banks talks as Starla, not just the accent, but there's a softness that she brings into her voice, which trying to be that delicate blonde, and she's anything but. And that's what's again fantastic about the film. You first see her and she's a school teacher. She's this soft, gentle character, and then as soon as shit goes down, she's like beating somebody's head in with a shovel. But again, like I said, that doesn't feel out of place because we've heard in the setup that she is strong and determined, and so when she does that, you're sort of like, it's not, you don't sniff like, oh, that's a bit out of the blue, like it often happens to women in horror films when they have to defend themselves. You go, yeah, okay, she knows how to get out of a situation or to get what she wants, and she is gonna smash that head in so that she's safe. Yeah,
I think like you're saying, there's some amazing set pieces. Even if you don't like maybe the whole film, I think there's at least one sequence in this that you would like. I want to talk about the Brenda sequence. We've already talked about the impregnation. So let's talk about the birthing of all the slug monsters via Brenda. Grant is, he's quite a clever guy. He's the Grant monster because he's not Grant anymore, but he has memories and experiences, and he's had sex. So the Grant monster has actually had sex with Starla and fallen in love with Starla, and has those kind of. And even Grant, he didn't cheat on Starla, so he does. He does still. He's not. I mean, he's not great. I'm not saying he's a hero in any stretch of the imagination, but there's still a genuine love and affection for Starla, and that transfers over to the creature. And I think that's what James Gunn was kind of after, was kind of a somewhat sympathetic and lonely creature, like a creature from the Black Lagoon, a Frankenstein, a Wolfman, a King Kong. I think that's what he was trying to, because this is a Universal movie, so it's a Universal monster. I don't know if you would put him in, the same photo or anything, Grant. But, technically it's a Universal monster. So, there's a lot of kind of history there with sympathetic characters and stuff. And everyone loves the monsters, don't they? We still love Michael Myers and, Jason Voorhees and Freddy and all those. And they're horrific people, but we love them in some kind of way. And we think, oh, those people probably deserved it. Now, the kids who bullied Carrie definitely deserved it.
They definitely deserved it.
They definitely deserve
100%. I don't often say that. I believe that most people can be redeemed. Not everybody. No, I said that. They cannot be redeemed, and they definitely deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. But yes, so Grant the Grant creature has led all the cops and everybody to the barn. There's this big barn, and why don't you tell us what they find in the barn?
They open the barn and there's a strange smell. What could that be? And they go in and it's quite dark, but they see filling the whole screen a poor, bloated, giant. I mean, what is basically, and I think James Gunn even says this, it's basically like a giant tit of Brenda. It's like one giant boob with her head as like a little nipple, completely stretched out and bloated, with what we are about to find out is slug babies. It's very grotesque. The poor actress was claustrophobic, apparently, and didn't know that she was going to shove her head in this.
Oh, God.
It's so hard to describe. Basically, what fills the screen is a giant stretched pink balloon that looks like a bit like a boob with her head in the middle. And she's crying and just saying that she's so hungry. And I mean, everybody handles it incredibly well, I would say.
Yes.
Because I would be like, well, I'm just fucking off out of here. I'll see you all later. And Bill's like, well, I think we need to get you to a hospital.
What are we going to do?
Yeah.
What are they going to do?
One of my favourite lines. So they basically be lured there. So knowing that she is going to explode with the slug babies, it's fucking weird.
Yeah, and she, all the way through the scene, they're talking to her, like she's still conscious, and she Grant has brought her all this like just carcasses of meat,
animals.
Yeah, he's bought all sorts of like deer, and she's like, "Oh, can you pass me that possum over there?" I'm still really hungry, and everyone's like about to throw up anyway. The mayor goes out to actually throw up. And she keeps, all of a sudden, she'll just like undulate, and she'll be like, and just like shake, and everyone's like, "Oh, stay back, you weirdo, stop it," and it just gets worse and worse, and it's like it's obviously there's a lot of tragedy and comedy, and there's a lot of comedy and tragedy as well. And it's kind of like you feel so sorry for her. You're like, poor Brenda. I felt
Poor Brenda's had a tough time.
Brenda, she's called Brenda in real life as well.
Yeah.
So Brenda had a really tough time of it. My God.
But there's a nice little line again. Like, this is the thing. I genuinely think the characters are written so well. Like, there's a nice little line in that bit where she talks about, like, is her baby okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that doesn't need to be there.
No.
But, again, it gives us that sympathy for Brenda in that scene, because it could be played for laughs, and it is, because it is hilarious, but it's also grotesque at the same time. But then also there's this really small touching bit in there where we're like, literally poor Brenda. Like, all she was a bit lonely with her baby who's playing with a tomato, and she just wants a bit of company, a bit of love, and this is what she gets. And, she's not been taken over by one of the worms. She's still her, just awfully impregnated of eating dead animal carcasses.
Absolutely.
And it's just so good.
It makes me think of, again, a James Gunn film. When in Guardians, where you see Rocket's back, and you see all the kind of experimentation and the scars on that. And again, doesn't need to be there. We know all we kind of need to know about Rocket, really. But it's just that added touch of emotion and that heart to go, yeah, he's a bit of an arsehole. He can be a bit, obnoxious and stuff. But actually, deep down, he's just hurt like the rest of us. Like he is his sum of scars, if you will. He is his life's worth of experience. And again, it's like a really kind of sweet, touching moment. Again, it's full of ridiculous lines, some amazing one-liners, and some amazing, just brilliant bits of just like ridiculous, disgusting comedy. But again, like you said, there's just this, these moments where, these kind of sweet moments. Like Grant even says, "Oh no, I can't do it. I can't cheat on my wife. I love Starla. I really do love Starla. I know it's difficult, but I'm married to her. I love her, and marriage is sacred." And that's a big thing in this. Like we was talking about marriage again, it's a big thing within the story, because that's how kind of Starla is able to kind of attack the creature, manipulate the creature, and use that to her advantage, because the creature is in love with her. Yeah, and she does it so well as well. Like when she's in the finale, we see the Grant creature has absorbed most of these zombies into himself to make an even larger, more grotesque body. Very Society. I absolutely love Society as well. The political,
such a good film. The
political stuff in there as well. I absolutely love it. Brilliant. Go check it out. Go check out the podcast that we did. Me and Dan Burgess did. It was so much fun. Anyway, but we see that, and she comes in, and they capture her, and again, it doesn't kill her, doesn't like impregnate her, doesn't do anything, because he genuinely loves Starla. This star creature loves Starla. It's like she comes in and she's like, well, I've got to get used to all these changes. There's been so many changes, but I can adjust, I can adapt to love you in a new way. And you've got these tentacles kind of like caressing her, and so apparently there was 7 puppeteers for all those tentacles as well.
The practical effects of this film are amazing and still hold up. I'm watching it on like a high definition TV. I mean, the visual effects less so, but the practical effects are so good, and the makeup. I mean, obviously no horror film ever gets nominated for anything, but how this did not win any awards for makeup is beyond me. And the way they progress it as well, like, I have no idea how they did it, but in my head, there were just like these amazing storyboards of how, just for the makeup, to especially Grant Monster's makeup, and how they progressed that, because it is absolutely outstanding.
And I'm so happy to see this far into the 2000s that like almost entirely, practical horror film is still using practical effects, even that far, like 2006, because now it's it'd be done by CGI. There's not one thing in this film that would be practical in today's day and age. It just would not happen. But even in his most recent films, there's still practical effects. Drax, for example, that could have all been CG, but it's not. It's practical, and there's a lot of stuff that could have been just CGI to the absolute limit. Again, I think that's one of the things that is probably the weakest of this film, is that the CGI is just not up to snuff against the practical. It does try, and I think there's some moments where it looks pretty good, but I think genuinely you're looking at the practical, you're not looking at the CG. But it's absolutely gorgeous. That whole kind of, I could look at that all day. It's absolutely disgusting, and the detail, the kind of like the fish-like tentacles, and the protrusions, the hair, and just all these people just like undulating as well. I'm going like, oh, I loved you, Starla.
Yeah, there's one guy who is absolutely fucking bringing it in that final scene. It's like there's the three sort of like undulating in the big body bit, and I think he's in the middle, and I'm like, that guy is giving it his all. Like, he is not and delivering as well. Like, he is not messing around. Again, like most people in this film, he got the memo and was like, I am fucking on it.
Absolutely. And also like doing an impression of Michael Rooker while he's in the room, which is ballsy, It reminds me of Batman Returns, where like Christopher Walken's son is doing his voice next to Christopher Walken. It's like, Dad, go, save yourself. It's doing all that, and just like, oh God, you got some balls on you to do that. But yeah, it's just phenomenal. I loved the genuine kind of suspense of the zombie deer as well. It was genuinely a spooky, very tense. You're not sure what's going on, what's in here. And then when it's revealed that it's like the zombie deer, like, again, you think, oh, just a deer, you just whack it away and it's not much of a threat. But genuinely, you're like, fuck me, that deer's definitely going to kill him. It's going to happen. Yeah. That deer is going to kill him.
And that, again, I mean, I don't know what was behind that scene. Bill goes back to the police station to get a grenade to try and blow up Grant Monster. And he goes in, it's all like creepy and dark, and there's things happening. He's managed to make it without being seen. We see the deer, and then we could cut completely outside and see it from the outside. And I don't know if that was like budgetary reasons or like a directorial decision, but however it came about, it works so well. And you can tell, I mean, I presume it's Nathan Fillion, because this wasn't like the biggest budget film, but you can tell he's like properly chucking himself around that set and around that room, and it's so good. Like, it just full on makes me laugh, that scene, every single time. And then when they carry on, when he comes out afterwards and he says to Kylie, the young girl, like, I'm going to tell everybody that I saved you from it. And it's a really obvious joke, but I don't know, it just lands really well. And again, that just makes me laugh so much, just every single time.
Because again, he's not this like overtly masculine, and he's not this, macho. It's not that macho bullshit. He's like a genuine guy under, realistic, genuine, real guy under these, crazy circumstances, and he's just dealing with it as a normal guy would. It's not like, well, I'm going to save everybody and I know what I'm just going to do. It's not John Wayne swaggering in to save the day. It's like an absolutely average guy, just, a beat cop, just, he's like, I don't know what the fuck's going on, but I'm going to try. I'm scared shitless, but I've got to do something. And, and it's that, what I love is that, it's being afraid, but then facing that fear as well. Like, I think that's always, I think is, a lot of people are like, oh, well, you're fearless. You're totally, you don't have any fear, but it's not. You feel the fear and you do it anyway. And
absolutely.
And I think he really embodies that kind of aspect in his character. But he still can't really deal with the unrequited love of Starla.
Yeah.
That's his real fear. He's like, I can't really tell her that I like her because she's married and, I don't know. But he'll throw himself at a giant squid. Giant squid monster. So good. I don't think you've had to do that much defending of it.
No, I haven't, have I? I mean, we probably should have like said at the beginning that it was an absolute box office flop.
Yeah,
it didn't
absolutely.
Make any money anywhere at all.
Yeah. And it was kind of disowned as well. It was kind of disowned because of that.
I messaged Jack earlier actually to say, like, is this memory correct? Because I don't think because we used to live together and we both love films. We'd always go to the cinema and watch films together. I'm not 100% sure that we went to see this in the cinema. I have a very distinct memory of watching this in a house we used to live in with our housemates in London. And I remember watching it then and being like, this film is amazing. Like, I was just completely in love with the film from the very, very first time I watched it. And at that time, I didn't really know anything about what was popular at the box office unless it was like Lord of the Rings and shit like that. Which was funny because I used to read like every film magazine going. So you think I would absorb some of that, but I just clearly didn't. I was not interested in the facts. I just want to read the cool bits where they're on the set talking to all the people. And so I have very distinct memories of being like, this film is amazing. but pretty much all my life when I've talked about a horror film that I think is underrated, nobody has ever heard of it. Nobody's ever seen it. And like I said, there's, it's actually really hard to get hold of. You can't buy it on any streaming. From one of the large online retailers, you can only get it in from Germany, which is what we had to do. Obviously, in the UK, it's already here, but it's the German. So it's all the blurb and stuff's all in German, luckily, because I was like, it's definitely not going to be in German, is it? That's really going to I'm going to have to choose a different film. It just disappeared. It just completely disappeared off the map. And and I'm part of loads of like horror Reddit threads and stuff like that. And I'm a lurker, I don't post too much. But people will talk about films like this, like what's a good body horror film? And this hardly ever comes up. There's going to be some horror nerds who'll be listening to yeah, I knew about Slither and stuff, which is great because I think more people should know about it. But it really is a film that just sort of dropped off the face of the earth. And I don't think it deserves that. I think it is so much more accomplished than many other, not even first-time filmmakers doing horror. And there's so many good things about I just think the writing's so incredibly good. Like we talked about, everybody came knowing what they were doing and bringing themselves to it and doing the best that they could, better than that, because that sounds like really dismissive, but just 100% getting the assignment. And I just don't understand why there's nobody I can ever talk to about it, or why it is not more of a...
If I was Universal right now, after the success of the Suicide Squad,
right,
I would be going, do we have anything by James Gunn?
Yep.
Put it out. Get it out there. He wrote the Scooby-Doo movies. Get them out again. Put them out.
Yeah. I always forget about that. So good.
He wrote those. They were great.
What a man.
They are what they are, but they're great. He wrote Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. Get that out.
I love that Dawn of the Dead.
Get this out. Like, do your HD, do your Ultra HDs, do whatever format it's in now, 4K, whatever it is. Just get it out there, and it will look gorgeous. Because again, it's all practical effects.
Yeah,
so it's going to look great. Yeah, the CGI might be dated, and again, the plot is very A to B, very thin, but everything else is there. The action sequences, like you said, these individual little horror stories are great, and you don't necessarily need to watch the rest of it. If you want to just watch the YouTube, I do recommend watching the whole thing. But if you just want to cherry pick these moments, fair enough, because they do work on their own, and they've got the humor, they've got the action, they've got the heart, they've got the drive, they've got, like, everything is just firing on all cylinders for me. Again, this might not be for everybody. It's a very particular taste and a sense of humor.
Yeah, but if you're not into James Gunn humor or body horror, it's probably not going to be for you. So Tony Farina, I probably wouldn't suggest it for him because it's not his flavor, and that's totally fine. I do think that's one of the problems with why it wasn't so successful. It couldn't land with, although audiences, it's got quite a high rating on sort of like Rotten Tomatoes and stuff, but at the time it came out, it couldn't land in the right place. And I think people did not understand what it was when it was coming out.
I imagine it would be a hard film to market.
Yeah.
I can imagine the marketers going, how do we sell this? Because it's funny, but it's not necessarily what you would call a comedy, because it's the characters react in a very realistic way, and that's humorous, but it's not like they're going to the shop for a cornetto and coming back and the zombies are all over there and they're walking past them. It's genuine, like, shock, horror, or what's going on. But it's like, oh, yeah, that's fucking weird. And I think that would be a difficult sell. Again, it's not Evil Dead. It's not some of the other it's not a Reanimator necessarily.
Yeah.
It's another kind of new type of flavor. It's probably a bit avant-garde, really. It was probably a little bit ahead of its time, I think, maybe, in what it was trying to do. But then again, he's gone on to have, people like his stuff, and he's gone on to have success elsewhere.
Well, and that's the other thing, isn't it? There wasn't really anything to sell it, right? James Gunn wasn't a name. He is now. Like you said, people would be lapping up, what are they doing? They should be releasing it. Nathan Fillion, very small geek subset of people know who he is. Elizabeth Banks hadn't really done that much,
She'd been Betty Brant in Spider-Man. That's why I remember her in earliest. I'll be honest, my first exposure to James Gunn before I saw this was a reality show. I don't know if you ever saw it. It was called Scream Queens.
I know of it, but I don't think I've ever watched it.
It is basically, it was actresses wanted to become horror actresses, and it was a competition, and basically they were challenging each other, and the winner would get a part in the latest Saw movie. And James Gunn was one of the judges.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Michael Rooker came in and they all did like an audition scene with him, and they play like a vampire seductress type thing, and he would play the same scene with all the different women, and they would kind of go,
I need to find this.
Yeah, I think you get it. It's proper cheesy, it's trash. I don't know a lot of the other people that were involved. There was one of the actresses from I can't remember her name, Shawnee Smith, I want to say. She's in Saw. She's like the one in the first and the second one. She's in the Blob. She's in the original Blob as well.
Right.
I want to say Shawnee Smith or something like that. We did a couple of years ago. I did a Scream Queen listing, and she was in my top 5. I can't remember her name now. It feels bad. Feels so bad. Look it up. You know what she's in.
You know I'm talking.
People know. But yeah, I think some people would get a blast out of that. I think it was only on for like a couple of seasons, but it was a very unique show. But he was one of the judges on it. And and then every time I see him now, I went, oh yeah, Scream Queens. Yeah.
I love that. See, that's the thing. I'm like, oh, James Gunn, Slither, and then I'm over Guardians of the Galaxy. Everyone, sorry, I am mainstream as well.
Yes, I know the mainstream things.
Yes.
I know what they're popular for. But that's not my world. I like to talk about the unpopular stuff, the stuff that doesn't get celebrated. That's what this channel's all about, and this is what the Secret Defenders is all about. So I there was not really much need for you to defend it, but I think people will love it if they check it out. If if that's what you like, if you like James Gunn, if you like your body horror, if you like a horror film that references its predecessors and its history, in a good way, in a positive way, in a fun way, I think this film would be right up your alley. I think if you're a horror fan, I think if you're a horror fan, you'll get a kick out of this.
Agreed.
in so many ways. I'm just going to see what kind of trivia I can find, because I've written some down. Oh yes, James Gunn had to explain to the crew what the term bukkake meant.
Oh.
Because nobody knew what that meant apart from James Gunn. So he was like, let me weave you a tale, guys.
Do you think he was like really proud of that moment, or was just a bit like, right?
Yeah. Am I the deviant in the group?
Yeah.
I'm the twisted one. There's a post-credits scene to this film.
Is there?
There is. Were you aware?
Well, now that you've said it, I think so, but I don't know what it is. Is it because there's still slugs, isn't there?
So there's a little part of Grant left. It's kind of like a little bit of a brain or something. And it's twitching and stuff. And then a cat comes along, starts licking it.
Yes.
And then fade to black, you hear the kind of barb shoot out and the cat screams, it's basically saying the cat is now infected and it's all going to happen again. So yeah, I thought I'd mention that in case anybody missed, because everyone loves a good post credits, and James Gunn's done them before.
Started it.
He's done it.
Started the post credits.
Way ahead of time. What else? Oh,
well, while you're doing that, can I just say one of my favourite visual jokes in the whole film, which every time, if I'm watching it with somebody, I want to pause it and be like, you can see it, right? You can see it. Is after they've broken into Starla and Grant Monster's house, and Grant Monster's gone off, and it's 3 days later and they're back in the police station. They're making jokes about Grant Monster being a squid. There is a map on the wall in the police station, and sightings of Grant Monster is a squid every single time. And I just feel like everybody else can see this, right? Because it's genius. It's so clever. It's so funny. So basically, it's ruined the film for everybody because I'm that dickhead. Yeah. But it's just...
You see that visual gag? It's funny. Yeah. I'm telling you, it's funny.
So funny. Every single time it makes me laugh. And there's another visual gag, which is when the twins are in the beds, they're going to sleep, and they're reading R.L. Stein horror films. Horror novels, sorry, not
Goosebumps,
films.
Yeah, Goosebumps.
Yeah, Goosebumps, yeah. And again, like, I have to be like, because that's a horror book. I'm not the most irritating person, clearly, I know. But they're just two visual gags that I just, every time, just floor me. I really like them.
Don't worry, I'm very guilty of watching a Marvel film and going, in the comics...
Oh, no, you're the worst.
Yeah, I'm the worst. I'm the worst one. I definitely am. In the comics, it's not like that. It's different. It's not quite like that. I don't know if it's better, but it is different.
Do you watch something adapted from the book and go, oh, the book was better?
Sometimes.
You are!
I'm one of them. Depends on the book. Depends on the adaptation.
They're different mediums, so
yeah, no, absolutely.
I often don't think that argument holds up. Just
fair enough. No, that's a good argument to have. Slither, the film, used so much skin-making silicone that it depleted the national supply of silicon, and it took them over a month to make more silicon.
That's amazing. And the thing is, now that you've said it, it seems so obvious, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of skin. A lot of skin on show, a lot of skin on the zombies, on all the fleshy stuff. 300 gallons of slime was used as well.
Oh, yes.
Just dripping, pussy.
Some of this film is actually gross.
Oh, yeah, it's disgusting.
Properly gross.
It's pure, like, Cronenbergian.
Yeah.
Like, Cronenberg loves his kind of the way disease and sex literally intersexes together, like, comes together, and, STIs and all that sort of horrible stuff. And that's very much on display here as well. You can definitely see where you're like, that's a bit orificey. Speaking of sex,
speaking of orifices,
the parasites were made of thermal gel and elastic material that was developed for the adult sex industry. I don't know why I say adult sex, like other sex is a thing. I think adult industry is what I'm
adult industry, yeah.
Yeah, adult industry or sex industry.
I always love this stuff, like with prop makers, like the stuff that they just adapt to make into things. Like they've got to have the best imagination. Like they have to be like the perfect blend of imagination and science to be able to make these things. Like prop makers just completely blow my mind. Same with like Foley artists. I'm just like, how do you like look at an orange and be like, oh, this will be the perfect sound of somebody's brain being squished in? Just madness.
It's just I love the imagination, like the research they do. Apparently for Grant, they research kind of undersea creatures like, sea cucumbers and starfish, but they also looked at like skin diseases and skin problems and kind of like, let's kind of mesh them together, see what happens. But yeah, just fantastic. There is a bit of music plays when they're all tooling up at the police station, and it sounds very similar to the theme from Predator. So it's the so it's not. I don't think it's the exact music because they probably would have been sued by 20th Century Fox. But I think it's just enough because I heard it and I went, shit, that's the Predator theme, isn't it? I heard it and went, yeah. Because I've seen that film a million times. I know the music. I can do the music. What else was there? Oh, this is brilliant. The barn is a property owned by Buddhist monks. Wait for it. Who love The Matrix.
That's something I really need to explore at a different time. Buddhist monks watching The Matrix and going, yeah, I'm on it.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of layers to The Matrix. You can pull away. Not a fan, no?
No, I really like The Matrix. I don't think it necessarily holds up as time's gone on, but somebody can convince me otherwise. I think The Matrix is incredibly good at what it does, but I don't think there's necessarily that many layers in it.
I think recently people have been discussing of it as kind of a trans film.
Yeah, great.
Which is an interesting way to look at it. I've never looked at it that way myself, but I think you could definitely view it in that way.
Yeah, I'd love to view it through that lens. That's
and
great.
Obviously both directors now have transitioned. Yeah. So that argument could be made that was maybe unconsciously running throughout the film, perhaps, or the franchise. But who knows? But I'm sure there's a podcast out there where someone's gone headfirst into that.
Now I feel bad about saying it's not got that many layers. Thanks.
I'm just here to make my guests feel bad. That's all I do. Make them feel awful. But yeah, that was.
If people are finding layers in it now that are about amazing things like transitioning, then that's fucking amazing. I'm swearing loads. I apologise, but I am on board for that. So don't get me back on the Matrix layer bandwagon.
You swear as fucking much as you fucking like. You can say that. You could even say the C word if you want. But no, too far. Gone too far.
C word, what? Costco? House? Colonic?
Yes.
Colonic?
I think Grant definitely needed a colonic after eating all those people, I think. See what comes out. Right. Well, I think we're coming towards an end, but I've really enjoyed this. And I think, what else can we say about the film that hasn't already been said by yourself, mostly? It is a very, very, very fun film. I think is there a lot of layers to this one? Or would you say, unlike The Matrix?
I wouldn't say there's that many layers to this one either. But that's
more like folds of skin.
We've got to bring it back. But I don't think there are layers, but not in a bad way. I think you aren't as sold on the overall arching story as I am. I think I'm all in for it. I think you've got a valid critique in that, like, it doesn't really go anywhere, but that doesn't bother me. But layers, I would say it's like a really small onion.
I would agree with that. Like, I'm criticizing it just.
Yeah. You're allowed to criticize it.
Oh yeah.
That's fine.
I'm not saying that it's just because it doesn't have much of a plot, it's a poor film. I absolutely disagree with my own points. It's like it's an A to B plot, and sometimes you need that.
Mad Max Fury Road, the best A to B plot that's ever been written.
I'm a big fan of Steve McQueen's Bullet, because that is just a simple film. It's just like one guy chasing down another guy. That's all you need to know.
That is one single layer, isn't it? That's like one layer of cling film.
Yeah, but it's done so well. That's the thing. It's done so well.
A very taut layer of cling film.
Oh, yes.
These are all getting away from me. Stop talking about layers. First of all, I couldn't think of anything that had layers apart from onions. Like, what else has layers?
Well,
cake.
Cake. Yeah, you could have a layer cake is a film. Yeah, sure.
That is a film. Good,
It's a film. But yeah, we do have some listener comments just very, very quickly come in today. So I've managed to compile some. Well, I might have got them yesterday. Who knows? Who knows when I got them? I found them.
What day is it? Nobody knows.
Got it. Who cares? So your brother and my friend, I Am Jack's Musings, at I Am Jack's Musings, and he said, I came for Nathan Cap'n Tight Pants.
Yeah.
And I left a fan of Gunn's gonzo genre filmmaking.
He always has to show off, doesn't he, with his words?
I do like a bit of alliteration though.
He's a little wordsmith, isn't he? It's really annoying. I just everything I say is littered with like. It's all like this, and I think, and he's just like, just fucking did it then. And he's just like, I'm just going to use words properly. Stop it! It's really irritating.
Hey, I'm a fan of your mode of communication. And Jack's, it's all valid to me. All works. It's still, I understand what you're getting at. It's fine.
But he is right. I think that there is even though we said there wasn't any real draw, there was no big name. I do think the little geek Nathan Fillion subset at least is was a gateway into this film and James Gunn's work, which I think is a really, really good thing.
And I think Nathan Fillion is known for being such a nice guy, such a genuine guy, and that has helped his career. And even James Gunn was like, I want this guy on my set for this film. He was like, not sure if he's right, but the way he is and the personality he has, and he's just such a warm presence, I think, and I think that's why he's done so well. And it's just the geek community has gravitated towards his warmth and his humor and his talent, and I think that's why he is just shot into the stratosphere of fandom and continues to do so with Castle and The Rookie, I think was one of his shows. And some
Rookie,
other
interestingly, have immediately came out after the terrible accident last week, saying they're going to not use any live props. Or rubber bullets or whatever, which I think is just amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Like, it's awful, just bloody, just horrendous. Horrific. Shouldn't have happened. Shouldn't be in a situation. There's a lot of people that I think are maybe. No, I'm not going to say that because that's inappropriate. I think there's a lot of people that might be. The investigation is not finished.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of people on social media, especially, that are blaming certain parties that may not necessarily be to blame. I would say let the investigation be completed and, charges put, lock people away, what have you, before we jump to those conclusions. That's all I would say. But yeah, I think that's a really good move and a very smart move of them. Obviously, It's just tragic. Any way you cut it is awful.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have happened. Shouldn't have been a thing that has happened. And it's quite lucky as well that it hasn't happened really since kind of the Brandon Lee, which was mid 90s, which is great, and it goes to show that is happened. But in a way, it's a positive because now the control of guns and firearms on sets will now be even stricter. So I'm not saying it was a good thing that it happened, but good things can come out of very bad things as well.
Yeah, completely agree. I think such a tragedy like that, the only thing we can hope for is a positive change. And it's amazing to see a TV show taking that step forward and almost instantaneously saying, actually, this is a terrible, terrible thing and we shouldn't be doing this. Let's move things forward.
I mean, you can do prop guns, you can do CGI guns, they do CGI bullets.
VFX, if blimmin' David Fincher, I'll credit my other half with this is what he said. If David Fincher can make people's breath show up in The Social Network because it wasn't cold enough, we can put fucking muzzle flashes in post via VFX in film and TV shows.
Absolutely, 100%. I couldn't agree more. Anyway, back to this. Back to this disgusting, sluggy squid monster thing.
Sorry, yeah.
No, I totally agree, and I think that's a really nice thing. And again, unprompted, absolutely unprompted. They were like, no one was like, we demand this, we demand these changes. It was like, no, we're going to do this because we think it's right. Good, I love that. Paul Meller at the Paul Meller Geek on Twitter says, I haven't seen it. Am I missing out? I'll watch it before the pod if you recommend. And I said, psst, I like it. But yes, Paul, absolutely check it out. If Ria's argument has not pushed you, do you have anything? Do you want to hit the nail in the coffin for this argument before we finish? Like, what exactly is, what's your pitch for selling this to somebody who hasn't seen it?
Oh, that's a lot of pressure. I think go in. Oh, God, no. I'm not going to be able to say anything wise or succinct. I really want to be here for another 45 minutes. I think go in and just try and enjoy it. Don't look for layers. Don't overthink anything. Just, it's not long. It's fairly short. I think going for some really good characters, some good character development, some people who've come committed to make a very specific type of film, have some fun with it, be horrified and chilled by it. Just be present. Definitely be present for this film. I think on the surface it's a kind of film where you can mess around with your phone or do what I often do is like be dicking around on my Switch doing stuff. But just go in and enjoy it and be present for it because you'll get a lot more enjoyment out of it, I think, than if you're not fully watching it.
Yeah, I think there might be some people out there that say that this might be a turn off your brain film. I absolutely disagree. I think you're absolutely right. I think go in with an open mind, be ready, be present for the experience and take it as it is. I think, again, like you said, don't expect, award-winning, scripts or story writing direction, even though it is incredible. Don't get me wrong. It is absolute brilliant genre filmmaking. I prefer genre filmmaking over Oscar bollocks and all that hoity-toity stuff, all the Oscar bait stuff. I'm not down for that. That's why I don't talk about that. I talk about this stuff. This is the stuff I like. This is the stuff I talk about. So absolutely. If you don't want any of that rubbish, come for this. Come for the space slugs and the space squids. That's what we're all here for some serious space squid action.
Yeah. And remember, it is not trying to rip anything off. So enjoy that. Enjoy the references. Enjoy going, oh, that reminds me of this thing. It reminds me of that. This whole film is about enjoyment, and not as in like, it is laugh out loud comedy, but enjoyment of the horror genre, enjoyment of the comedy within this very specific type of horror genre.
I've got another fact I forgot. The original title was Wiggle.
Nobody would have seen it if it was called Wiggle. Absolutely no one.
I mean, not many people saw it anyway, but even less. The producers were like, "Yeah, we can't call it Wiggle.
Can you imagine that on the poster? People would have thought it was a children's film, right?
Yeah, well, there was the Wiggles, wasn't there? That was like an Australian, kids show, wasn't there?
Imagine being like, "Oh, we're just going to pop to the cinema on a Saturday morning."
Quick! They can't see the impregnation scene. Cover their eyes. Oh wow! Wiggle. Can you imagine that? That's obviously they were kind of aiming for the humour there, but I think not quite the right level. But I think one time the producers stepped in and they were right, which is very rare for film. on the odd occasion, the producers do go, "Yeah, we'll just rein you in just a little bit, James."
My favourite thing with the name is I'll always say to people, "Oh, Slither," and they go, "Sliver." Like was that the Kim Basinger film?
Sharon Stone.
Sharon Stone.
Again, me and Jack mentioned that last week as well. Well, like a couple of weeks ago now, I think it'll be.
And it's like they're very different. It's not the same film.
It's not, this is not very erotic at all.
No.
And to be honest, I'm not sure if Slither was either. But 13-year-old me was like, "I'll watch it. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's a very good film."
I'm just watching it for the acting and the award-winning script.
That's right. Not the boobies. I'm not here for the boobies. Definitely not here for the boobies. Yes, that was nice to relive 13-year-old me watching television. Looking up on teletext when the latest erotic thriller was on.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Oh dear. Sad times. Anyway, Paul, back to the film.
Yes.
Yes. Go and watch it. Ria recommends it. I recommend it. Highly recommend it. Go do it. It's just mad fun. So just get in there. If you can find it anywhere, you might need to buy it.
Maybe I'll rent out my German.
Hey, you might
DVD
make a business
or Blu-ray, whatever it is.
You might have a little business there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how Netflix started. So
Ria's Rentals.
Ria's Rentals. Oh, I like that. I like that. That could be your next podcast.
Yeah.
Ria's Rentals. What did you rent out? And was it any good?
Did they give it back in proper condition? Importantly.
Exactly. So we're going to move over to Instagram.
Yeah.
Which I try and be active on, but it's not necessarily my favorite. I think Twitter is my favorite of the social medias. But my friend from uni, Patrick, or Pat the Trick on Instagram, said, "Such an underrated horror comedy." Absolutely, Patrick. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well done. Patrick, get your quote on the poster. Done.
Yeah. Such an underrated horror comedy. I'll put it on my poster. Put it on my Slither poster. We'll put it on there.
Can we have 5 slugs? We have Patrick's comments and then 5 slugs.
5 out of 5 slugs.
Yeah. I genuinely want to see that. I would be so sad if that's not there. I'm going to find Patrick and I'm going to send him a message and be like, if Dan doesn't do this, then we're going to have to gang up on him.
We're going to have to revolt.
Yeah.
Slither revolts. Get your picket lines out. Get your signs out. Slither signs. 5 slugs or revolt. Uncle Frank Productions, who's the official artist for Grimfest, who I interviewed during my Grimfest stint, he said, great movie. He also does the artwork. Speaking of German copies, he does the artwork for a lot of the media book releases in Germany.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of the cool, amazing artwork they do for the DVDs and Blu-rays over there, from, I believe it's MediaBook. You'll have to look him up. But he does most of those.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And he created the Grim Reaper, the official Grim Reaper mascot, and the kind of the posters for them since 2015, I think he said.
Oh, that's so cool.
And he now lives over there because he gets so much work from Germany. So
wow,
there you go. But thank you very much for that, Uncle Frank Productions. And Wicker Girl 66, who I also met at Grimfest. She's just posted 3 hearts. So so I'm going to say that she loves it.
Yeah, I would say that's
times 3, something like that. That's how I understand it. Or
that's if it's like out of 20 or something. I'm saying, oh no,
but it's not 3 slugs out of 5 though, is it?
No. That's the ultimate.
But thank you very much, everyone, for your comments. They were great. Go check out the movie. Ria's not had to argue that much with me. It's not one that I'm like, yeah, can't really. It's good. It's very, very good. But still, you've done a cracking job.
Thank you.
So I think you've done an excellent job at defending this film.
You hadn't watched it before, had you? This was the first time watching it.
No, I had watched it, but not for a very long time. So it was nice to get, because I remember kind of enjoying it, but I don't think I enjoyed it as much as this time round.
Yeah.
So I think I appreciated more because I think I'd probably seen more films. I'd seen the references a bit more, and I knew who James Good was. I knew his style a bit more. I was a bit more familiar with him. But I honestly got a lot more out of it. So I'm really glad you recommended it and made me maybe watch it again. So, and even if I hadn't watched it, I think I still would have loved it for this time round anyway. But yeah, it's been fantastic. So we talked about your brilliant new podcast. We've talked about where you are and what you're doing, but where can people find you on the social medias? So we're talking the Pop Gorillas. We're talking, you've been on Season's Greetings. You're now on the co-host of an Indie Comic Spotlight as well. And you've got your own podcast, Femme on Film.
Yeah.
Where are all those? And where are you?
Where are they all? I'm like Roy fucking Kent, aren't I? I'm here, I'm there, I'm every fucking where. Ria Carrogan. It's not the same ring, is it?
No.
So you can find me on the socials with my very unimaginative name, which is just at Ria Carrogan, RiaCarrogan, and that's both on Twitter and Instagram. I'm probably more active on Twitter these days, but there's also Femme on Film, which is at Femme on Film Pod. I think I only set it up 2 days ago. I don't know.
It's okay. Don't worry. I'll tag it.
Lovely. If everybody could just do my admin for me, that'd be wonderful. And then also Pop Gorillas, which is at the Pop Gorillas. Just search Pop Gorillas. Gorillas, not as in like the ape, as in the
military. Yeah.
Yeah,
like guerrilla rebels or
yes,
guerrilla,
thank you. Yeah, more like rebels. Thank you. I was trying to think of like I didn't want to be like terrorist. Because where I was going, I was like, that doesn't sound good, does it?
Maybe.
Yeah, which I do with I Am Jack's Musings and Tony Farina, and then also with Tony on Indie Comic Spotlight, which is part of the Comics in Motion Network. Like I said, I'm everywhere. Yeah. I'm so sorry. You're all going to get bored of my voice.
You've done the Nethers on there. You've done a bit of Angel. Have you done Angel yet? No,
not yet. No. So I've done Nethers, Buffy, the TV show, Buffy the film, because you've done the Nethers as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I've done a little bit of Nethers.
Yeah. Basically, it's just really great at Comics in Motion because as soon as they realise that you're free, they'll just, that you've not got much going on because you've got a toddler, they'll just invite you to everything. It's wonderful. And you just get to chat with so many wonderful people about so many fun things. And it's lovely.
Yeah, I'm not officially part of the Comics Motion thing. It's kind of this is my own baby, so I look after it.
But you're like, I'm a breakout.
I can still.
I'm a lone wolf. Look at me go.
I'm a lone wolf in the wolf pack, but I love being part of comics and like being unofficially a part of Comics in Motion. I love all the work they're doing. I love the community. I love all this sort of stuff that they do and how they bring more and more people in to do more and more different and diverse things. I love all the opinions. I love, there's the Star Wars stuff. You've got, your rental reviews. You've got the judge aspect of things, all this good stuff. Like it's all on Comics in Motion. There's stuff every single day,
Yeah,
I wish I could
an
post
admin
that
nightmare.
Oh, I can imagine.
I don't have to do any of it, and it's great.
Yeah, I can't even imagine the amount of organized. Like, it's hard enough to do my stuff, and I only do mine every now and again.
You're everywhere. You're always out.
I don't know. I keep myself busy, but yeah, the Grimfest thing came along pretty. We did it on the Thursday. I knew we were doing it on the Wednesday, so it was.
Amazing though. You should be so proud. It's so cool.
Oh, it was an amazing experience, and I loved being a part of it. And we've been invited to do maybe more stuff in the future, maybe next year. I don't know, but again, I'm not going to count my chickens. But it's a big thank you to Dennis, who's practically a co-host at this point. He's been on so many podcasts, but he's the schmoozer. He's the guy who he greases all the wheels. I'm not really the good at the whole networking thing, so he's amazing at that. I'm just like, I'll just get my friends on the podcast. I can talk to them. I'm brave enough to talk to them. But he's great at that, and obviously he can't do all the editing and social media stuff I do. So it's a good little partnership. Not that even I want to do it, but it's a good little partnership we have, and amazing to consider that. And the podcast birthday is, I say it's coming up, but by the time this is probably out, it'll have been and gone. So it'll have been.
No way! Happy birthday.
So yeah, I'll get it on the social medias. Ask for everybody's opinions on stuff. I'm like, what do you like? What do you hate? Do you hate more stuff than you like? Because should I be more quiet? Should I do less? Who knows? Whatever you say. But no, everyone's great. All the Prattalion, as I like to call them, are great, and everyone's fantastic. You've been fantastic. Thank you so much again I know you're very busy. I know you're doing all those other podcasts, and you've got your toddler, like you said, and, all the other stuff you do. I think I just it's a real blessing to have you on. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I've been so excited. It's so great to actually meet you, which sounds so weird. But I feel like I know you from your podcast and then from Jack and then from our conversations about this. It's a really weird, it's like you were sort of just in ears.
Ethereal.
And then obviously talking to Jack about you and you being on the Nevers and stuff like that, I felt like you were my brother's friend who, you go to parties, like your brother's having, or sibling or friends, and you're a friend of a friend type thing.
Sure.
And now I actually know you and it's lovely.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. So, but I can't wait for more Femme on Film. And like I said, if you need somebody, obviously, don't fill it up with blokes because that's not what that's about. Don't just be like wall to wall blokes.
I have liked that you've offered up 2 films though. You're like, all right, I've got this.
I have opinions. I'm not going to tell you what feminism is because that's not my.
You can be an ally. You're allowed.
Absolutely. I want to be that. And whenever you want me, I'm more than happy to be there. But I just can't. I can't wait for you to get absolutely stuck in. And I've got some friends who will absolutely love that podcast. So
amazing.
I'm gonna get them. I'm like, listen to this because this is absolutely your bag. So
lovely.
I wish you all the luck with that because it's going to be. I know it's going to be fantastic. I know it's going to be around for a while. It better be. I'm going to be very, very disappointed.
Just make sure I'm organised, okay?
I'm going to revolt. I'll revolt. But yeah, whatever you can do, whenever you can do it. That's how I see the podcasting. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to get stuff done. Just do it when it feels right, when it's good. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun.
It's supposed to be fun. That's very true.
So yes. So I'll bang on with my social media. Most people know this by now, but I'll go on it anyway. So I'm at Secret Balls on Facebook. I'm at Dan_balls on Twitter, at Spider Dan Secret Balls on Instagram. And don't forget to use the hashtag Prepare for Prattle. For everything else you need to know about the podcast, swing over to spiderdanandthesecretballs.com on the World Wide Web. And I'd like to thank my patrons on Patreon. I am Jack's Musings, Paul Meller, Max Byrne, Tony Farina, Scott Hodgson, Simon Cottam for their continuing donations. It is very much appreciated and helps Prattle World keep on turning. And if you ever find yourself in a position to help the podcast, please consider it. Thank you very much. This has been fantastic. A bit later than planned, but I have really, really loved it. And I'm glad we managed to work it out and get it done. But it's been so much fun. Thank you so much for your time. Bye.
Bye.